Hello all, thanks for tuning in. I'm Steve, an Intelligence Fusion Specialist here at Intel 471, and today's webinar is focused on the RansomHub ransomware group. Now this group likely needs no introduction. Emerging in February 2024, they've rapidly become one of the most prolific groups in the ransomware landscape. As you'll have already noted from the bottom right of the screen, the intelligence cutoff date for this webinar is the 31st of October 2024. So over the next 15 minutes, I'll provide a brief overview of RansomHub as we see them now, before exploring some of the drivers behind their origin and subsequent growth. And I'll finish by considering some of the possibilities of its future trajectory and some associated potential challenges given the current state of the ransomware landscape. Before we explore the drivers behind RansomHub's origin, rise and future, it's worth providing a brief overview of the group as we see them now. Since its emergence in February 2024, RansomHub has rapidly become one of the most prolific ransomware groups in the landscape. Using breach alerting that has been checked and verified by our team, we observed 308 victims claimed by the group. They have targeted organisations across sectors and geographical regions, as you can get an appreciation of by the graphic on the slide. Now, whilst targeting organisations across the globe, it has primarily impacted those in North America and Europe. Entities in the US accounted for about 40% of total claim victims, followed by Brazil at about 5%, and Italy and the UK at about 4%. RansomHub does, however, forbid its affiliates from targeting entities in China, North Korea, Romania, and the Commonwealth of Independent States, often abbreviated to CIS, countries, which is typical for Russia-based ransomware groups. The most impacted sector was consumer and industrial products at about 16% of total victims, while the most impacted industries in descending order were engineering and construction, industrial products and services, and information technology. Most of RansomHub's victims were low-profile entities with low or undisclosed revenues, which suggests the group prioritises targets that may be easier to attack, but likely will pay a lower ransom. However, just over 4% of RansomHub's claimed victims had revenues of more than $1 billion, demonstrating their ability to target organisations on the other end of the spectrum. The group also displays additional similarities to other ransomware groups. They operate under the ransomware as a service model, a concept that allows cybercriminals or affiliates of the group to lease elements of their infrastructure and ransomware builds on a profit-sharing basis. RansomHub affiliates are offered 90% of ransom payments. Additionally, RansomHub also uses the double extortion method, not only encrypting key data within a victim's environment, but also exfiltrating it whilst threatening to post it publicly via their data leak site. This is a Tor-based domain the group uses to apply additional pressure to victims to force a ransom payment by naming them and releasing samples of exfiltrated data. There are also additional similarities with other ransomware groups, including how the malware operates, though what sets RansomHub apart is its advanced evasion techniques and use of custom ransomware designed to target Linux, VMware ESXi hypervisors, and Windows operating systems. For example, after access to a victim environment is achieved, operators execute obfuscated commands and script files that disable antivirus and EDR software to evade detection. Recently, in August 2024, RansomHub has implemented a new tool in their attacks, dubbed EDR Kill Shifter. This tool is built to stealthily disable EDR or security tooling installed on a victim's system and helps operators control it. RansomHub has been observed gaining initial access through phishing emails, exploited vulnerabilities, brute force attacks, and with compromised RDP, VPN, and Citrix credentials. Now, these are some of the reasons RansomHub has emerged as one of the most prolific ransomware groups in the current landscape. And with that covered, I'll now move on to highlight the additional drivers of its rise. And to do so, it's worth briefly considering its origin story. So as previously mentioned, RansomHub emerged on the 2nd of February 2024 when the actor Coley announced the affiliate program on the infamous RAMP cybercriminal forum. The post included an overview of the group, including some details on the malware, panel, and rules of engagement. Now the quotes you can see on the slide are from that post. It included a sales pitch designed to attract new affiliates. It also provided an early indication of how the group intended to exploit the state of the ransomware landscape to drive its growth. Coley noted that affiliates of other groups have lost funds because of fraudulent activity by or disruption of law enforcement to the wider group's infrastructure and leadership. Consequently, to mitigate this risk to its own affiliates, the actor outlined that ransom payments would be paid directly to an affiliate's wallet. The group also sought experienced ransomware operators. Prospective affiliates must provide proof of previously successful ransomware operations, have established IDs on reputable forums, and/or have an affiliate vouch for them. To quote Coley here, however, the best and quickest way to join is, unsurprisingly, to pay a deposit. Additionally, Coley insinuated that there is a reduced risk of joining younger affiliate programs due to the greater risk of the dissolution of well-established ransomware groups. For context, these comments were made just over a month after the infamous Alpha, aka BlackCat, ransomware group's infrastructure was disrupted by law enforcement and pre its exit scam. There is also evidence suggesting that RansomHub may have had a head start by being an updated version of, or successor to, the Knight ransomware group. We had previously observed the actor Cyclops, an operator of Knight, offered to sell source code for the panel and the Knight 3.0 ransomware written in the C++ and Golang programming languages, the same languages as RansomHub's ransomware. Additionally, RansomHub was launched about the same time the leak site of the Knight ransomware group became inaccessible. So, there's a brief version of its origin story. I'll now progress to outline some of the drivers of the group's growth and rise to prominence. So since RansomHub's emergence, their growth has been exponential, to the extent that they are now cementing their place as the leader in the ransomware landscape. In February 2024, its first month of operations, the group posted 4 victims on their data leak site. By April, that number had quadrupled to 16, and the rate of growth has continued without plateauing to 80 victims in October, depicted by the pink line on the graph. So, what facilitated and drove such growth? One reason is something I touched on previously, the group's ability to capitalise on the state of the ransomware landscape. Specifically, I'm referring to RansomHub's likely success in attracting experienced affiliates from other ransomware groups. The increased law enforcement scrutiny surrounding Alpha and subsequently LockBit possibly forced many affiliates still looking to remain active to shift to other ransomware groups. Like any service, actors often look for the most attractive package before committing, which prompts competition between these groups for their business. When a customer loses faith in a brand, they can move to another, especially after law enforcement action. With this in mind, the migration of Alpha and LockBit affiliates to other ransomware groups and programs after their disruption was inevitable. One prominent, likely example we have is the actor Notchi. On the 3rd of March 2024, Notchi filed a complaint on the RAMP cybercrime forum against an operator of the Alpha ransomware group that accused the operator of a scam attempt. The actor claimed their team was behind the ransomware attack against a US-based healthcare provider and also claimed Alpha appropriated a $22 million ransom payment and banned their affiliate account shortly after victim payment was made. Notchi also claimed they still possessed 4 terabytes of the victim's data. Following Alpha's exit scam on the 8th of April 2024, RansomHub posted the same organisation onto their data leak site, claiming to possess more than 4 terabytes of sensitive data from the victim, indicating Notchi's move to RansomHub. Moreover, outside of Alpha and LockBit, the group allegedly attracted members of the Scattered Spider intrusion cluster to its affiliate base in June 2024, which likely allows RansomHub to use elements of the cluster's experience and toolset to further enhance its capabilities. Now that we've explored RansomHub's origin story, rise, and current state, let's move on to its future. As the impact of the RansomHub operation continues to grow, it raises the question whether the group have the ambition to replace LockBit as the most prolific and out-and-out leader of the ransomware landscape. The numbers of victims that RansomHub have added to their leak site each month over the last couple of months are comparable with the lower ebbs of LockBit's activity during their reign, but the group will need to demonstrate consistency over a longer period if that comparison is to be made. If a ransomware as a service model of that scale is its ambition, it will present a few challenges and considerations for the group's future operations. Firstly, they will present a rather large and shiny target for law enforcement. As we observed with previous large-scale and high-impact ransomware groups in the past, subsequent law enforcement disruption has at the very least considerably reduced a group's operational capacity and in most cases causes their dissolution. Additionally, it is highly likely that affiliates will be more hesitant to join a ransomware group at that scale, given the increased risk of exposure and loss of funds following such disruption. RansomHub have already gone some way to mitigate such concerns by allowing affiliates to receive ransomware payments directly into their wallets. Another potential challenge for the group, if they intend to reach this goal, also stems from the wider implications of law enforcement disruption against ransomware groups. As I touched on earlier, it is public knowledge that a US-based healthcare provider paid a significant ransom to Alpha following a breach back in February, only to subsequently find their data on RansomHub's leak site following Alpha's exit scam. Additionally, at the start of October 2024, the multinational law enforcement operation, dubbed Operation Kronos, unveiled that LockBit had never deleted stolen data since 2022, even after a victim paid the associated ransom. It is likely both events will factor as a deterrent when victim organisations assess the value of paying ransoms in future. Though the extent of this impact is difficult to determine, it is something that RansomHub may have to account for if it is to cement itself as the leader in the ransomware landscape. Now, taking away the assumption that the group aspires to replace LockBit, it's likely that RansomHub will remain one of the most highly impactful ransomware groups within the landscape. It has demonstrated its capability to impact large numbers of organisations, and its intent to do so by posting high numbers of claimed victims over the last few months. What is difficult to determine is how long RansomHub can sustain this position. In the past, ransomware groups on a similar scale have been unable to maintain it for more than a couple of years, perhaps providing some indication. For example, the Conti ransomware group first emerged in early 2020 and had disbanded by May 2022 after their declaration of support for Russia during its invasion of Ukraine caused an internal rift and data leakage. Additionally, whilst we started seeing evidence of the emergence of Alpha in December 2021, they began claiming high numbers of victims in late 2022, just over a year before law enforcement disruption activity and their exit scam. So to summarise, during this webinar I have provided a brief overview of RansomHub as we see them today, a highly impactful group that continues to grow and is cementing itself as the leader in the ransomware landscape. I then touched on its origin story, linking the group as a successor to the Knight ransomware group, and highlighting an early indication of its intent to exploit significant contemporary risks perceived by affiliates of ransomware groups in its recruitment strategy. I then outlined some of the drivers behind RansomHub's meteoric growth, namely its likely success in attracting experienced affiliates from other ransomware groups, such as Alpha and LockBit. Last, I touched on the future of the group, specifically the likelihood it will remain a significant player in the ransomware landscape, given demonstrated intent and capability this far. and I've also highlighted some of the possible challenges they may face from an unsettled ransomware landscape, particularly if they aspire to continue to grow and attain the scale of LockBit's operations during their reign. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I hope you have found it beneficial. Unsurprisingly, given all we've discussed, RansomHub is a bit of a hot topic right now, along with a wider ransomware landscape. But fear not, we have a few blogs of note that can help you quench your thirst. Of note, the two on the slide there, searchable on our site. If threat hunting is of interest to you, then you can learn more about hunting for the group from reading the Hunting for RansomHub and Antivirus Killers blog, but also via a free community account on our Hunter platform where you'll find associated and accessible hunt packages. Any further inquiries or questions about today's webinar, please feel free to direct them to the email address on the screen where we'll be happy to assist. Thank you.